So this is a recipe that was developed from a gluten-free on a shoestring recipe, using a little bit of change to make it fully FODMAP compliant, as well as gluten-free. So one of those things was using coconut oil instead of butter, and the other one is using golden syrup instead of honey and molasses, because golden syrup is just that bit better for FODMAP than those two things are. It's still not perfect, you won't want to have loads of it, but by the time you've baked these up into individual cookies on a per cookie basis, you're fine with the amount of golden syrup that's in these. It's well under a tablespoon per cookie, so that's good. Alright, I've done my weighing out already, and I am lazy as heck, so I'm using my KitchenAid for this rather than a spoon or a hand whisk. So first thing is to put all the dry ingredients. Yeah, so first thing, sorry, just getting this up here. First thing is actually to preheat the oven, which I've done. And then get a bowl, large bowl, and combine your dry ingredients. So 210 grams of gluten-free flour. And that just goes straight in there. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of xantham gum. I recommend using it even if your blend says it already has some in. It does seem to make a difference. So baking soda is 1/2 teaspoon. So just using a 1/4 teaspoon again because I'm lazy like that. And then what have we got? The spices, which is cinnamon and ginger on the official recipe. But I also put a little bit of nutmeg in because nutmeg makes everything better. Now, teaspoon recipe is 1.5 cinnamon. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't do this recipe as well as I might. 1.5, slightly guesstimating because you can't really put too much in. I mean, I'm sure you could eventually, but a little bit more here or there is not going to hurt. I don't think it will. And if you like a very gingery cookie, so this is the other thing, right? This is, even though I'm English, this is something I refer to as a gingerbread cookie rather than a gingerbread biscuit. It's much softer. I would say that like a gingerbread biscuit, you have to get that like snap to quote Prue and Great British Bake Off, whereas this really doesn't have that. It's a much softer cookie. So there we go. I also say I like to put a little bit of nutmeg in because nutmeg is tasty, but not too much because a little bit goes quite a long way. This is pre-ground, but obviously you can buy grated. So a small kind of 1/2 tablespoon ish. This is a bit of guesstimate. So in general with baking you do have to be pretty precise, but kind of flavors like this, particularly dry flavors in a cookie, don't have to be too precise. A bit more, a bit less, yeah. All right, and then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So, as I have talked about before, the importance of salt. I used to just skip over it in a recipe, but I was wrong. So, there we go. And last bit of dry ingredients is some light brown sugar. This is actually golden caster sugar, but basically any kind of brown sugar will do in this context. It's weighed out 109 grams. No, that's a lie. It's not 109 grams. How much is it? Oh, it is 109 grams. I knew, I was just testing myself. I don't know. Right, so 109 grams just goes in there. And say, I pre-weighed all of this stuff, so you don't have to watch me do it. You just have to watch me trash it instead. Okay, so I say, I'm using my KitchenAid because I'm lazy. And what we're doing just is whisking it a little bit. Turn it on first, that would be helpful. Just to combine the ingredients, so just whisking it. Doesn't take very long. As you can see, it's all whisked together. Brilliant. Strictly speaking, I think, yeah, so then, yeah, make sure there are no kind of lumps in it. Zhuzh it a little bit. All good. Then what you do is you make a little space in the middle using a spoon. This spoon will do, any spoon. Or indeed anything you like, but make a little well in the middle for the wet ingredients, which is our coconut oil, our golden syrup, our eggs, and our vanilla. So, again, vanilla in everything. Vanilla and salt, the answer to so many of life's problems. So, just like a little well, like that. You can kind of see some easy one to show, but yeah, and then straight in. And yeah, after each one, just checking, after each thing goes in, well, that makes it. So, our butter substitute first. It's in there. Now I'm going to switch this out for this one. So we don't really need to whisk anymore. There we go. There we go. So you can get these ready. Something like that. And then I'm checking it. I'm getting a electric spatula to just check that all the there's nothing kind of stuck anywhere, to make sure all the butter, or in this case coconut oil, has come off the KitchenAid. Make a little well again. So I'm going to bring it over, show you the inside. That's what it looks like. And we're making a little well, as we did before. This time for golden syrup. This is it. Golden syrup. Straight up into the bowl. And now I have my flexible spatula. I can use that to just encourage the golden syrup out. Wow, I like the colour of golden syrup as well. Amber. Just kind of feels a little Christmassy. As indeed does gingerbread as a whole. So. I'm just using getting out as much as possible. to get that delicious sugary sweetness and liquid in there. Alright. And we will mix that again. Shield back on. Set it on a medium to incorporate that. See, that's starting to kind of come together a little bit now. We're adding more and more liquid. Sorry, that's too much syrup on my laptop. So you can see how it's starting to come together, but it's still looking pretty dry. So next what we're going to do is egg, which this time is room temperature, so no need to worry about making sure it's been in the fridge or anything like that. And this actually gives a specific measurement, gram measurement for eggs, but which is useful, particularly if I want to do like a half recipe or anything, because I just spray myself with cookie dough. But in this case, we don't, and we're just going to use a whole large egg. Says weighed 60 grams out of its shell, so large egg. So we're slowly adding more and more liquid to it. Because it's getting more sticky, the shield becomes less necessary, obviously, but put it on anyway. And so again, put it on medium. See, it's starting to become more like an actual cookie dough. It's good. And so the last thing is vanilla, which is half a teaspoon. I might use a little bit more because, as I say, vanilla's freaking great. And again, just getting my spatula up to press down the, to wipe down the sides essentially. And rather putting that on medium there. Just incorporate it. Doesn't take too long. You can see it's very wet, very doughy. Much more so than it was last time. Well, I guess it's pretty similar to just after we added the egg. So the egg is what really makes the difference in terms of liquid here. It's what really kind of pushes it from that really crumbly dough to something you can really make some kind of biscuit out of. So, as you see, sticky in there. I'm going to liberally flour the surface because of the aforementioned stickiness. Look at how sticky it is when you take it out. The other thing you can do at this point, I'm not going to do, but you can do, is put it in the fridge for a bit to firm up, which will make it a little bit easier to handle, but who's got time for that today? Not me. So Just gonna roll it around a little bit. Nice and sugary, floury, not sugary. That would be weird. Right, so you can see a little bit better. Can't see me as well, which is clearly the point. I know. Move this out of the way as well. Put it back. Stand. Right, so here we're just going to roll it, turning it over. It's very soft. Try and keep your sleeves out of the way. I will not apron to protect the worst of it. Oh, bollocks. Okay. See? Very sticky. And quite soft. So that is why I said the thing about the fridge. Might be the right answer for you. Now, I won't do every cookie out of this because, to be honest, we don't have time. Cutting out 30 cookies is dull. But yeah, you roll it out. So I'm just gonna work with a smaller bit of dough. Now I start to get that floured. So this is about the rest of it, so small, maybe a third, quarter bit of dough. I want to roll it out relatively thinly because of how these are made. They're going to puff up a bit in the oven. So, not too thinly so you can't actually do anything with them. Cookie cutters. In order to do this, really cookie cutters. So I have stars of very many sizes. Normally, let's go for a kind of middle size, but can't be anyone. I might do a couple of different ones today, just to... Anyhow, so that's how thin it is. And it does come, despite being all sticky, you rolled it out, and it does come away from the very liberally floured work surface. And do some bigger ones. Sometimes they don't come away neatly. You might have to just grab it. Depending on how big, if you're using cookie cutters this big, you will not necessarily get 30 full stars or Christmas trees, or I don't know, whatever your decoration full-on gingerbread men of choice is. I don't actually have any gingerbread men cookie cutters, which I know is a travesty. Here we go, so I'm going to get just a few more out of here. There we go, don't want them too close together before they do puff up a little bit. I find that really small, it's kind of too, they don't cook quite as well. Similarly, yeah, you don't want them too thin. The risk of over baking is high. So, just cutting out some of these. And then, as is traditional at this point, ball that up again and roll it out. I'll find this in pretty much any recipe because no one wants to waste all that extra cookie goodness. There's no real, this is all a bit, this is another part where it's a little bit of guesswork. So this one's a little bit thicker maybe than last time. Not much though. As long as it's all in the same ballpark. There'll usually be a, as much as a £2 coin or a 10 pence piece or something. But I just find that really difficult and fiddly. So this is where the guesstimation comes back in. And we can keep rolling back. Roll on and back, roll on and back, roll on and back. I'm going to have to figure out these angles again at some point because this is not ideal. You can only see part of my face. Unless I do this. Squint down. Squint down? That's not the word. Not the word at all. Yeah, I also have no idea how I'm going to edit this, or if I'm going to edit this, or what the result of that might be. But, yeah. Set of stars. A couple of bigger stars. Also depends what you're going to do with them. If you're going to put icing on them, you probably want them to be a little bit bigger, just so you've got space to, you know, actually put some decoration, whatever. I won't make you watch me put icing on because I'm not good at it, and it will just be me probably smushing royal icing on things. So I guess that's the other thing for FODMAP folk for icing. Icing sugar is fine. Yeah, sure, this one. But obviously, and so just water and icing sugar for icing, by and large, works. Okay. One more. And then I'll cook these and show you the results. I say, will not make you watch me do all of the dough, because as you see, this can end up with quite a lot of cookies. But that's good, because then some of these are going out as gifts to people this year. So hopefully they will enjoy them. I'm just making a little bit more space on my tray. Okay. Almost more. Try and avoid getting thinner and thinner, because that is one thing that can kind of fuck them up, kind of mess them up, is if you end up with some really thin ones. Small and big ones, not too bad, but yeah, some really thin ones, probably not so much. Okay, I'm going to add this little bit of extra dough to my big pile, and I'm going to do the rest of that later. Alright, so I did my mainstay of my baking at lunchtime. Now it's toward the end of the day, and I just wanted to show you, so these are all the stars that I made. I had a tiny bit of one to make sure they were good. They are. You can see the inside, that's what it looks like. They're a little bit squishy, but they're not, they're not totally squishy, but they snap like that. It's not that kind of really biscuity situation, whereas this one, which was slightly overdone because it's a teeny one, you can see it's kind of a little bit darker in colour. That has biscuits now. So, things to mention that I forgot to talk about before. One is they only take about 8 minutes in the oven. The oven should be on at about 180. Very quick. You can also, one of the things you can do is when you've cut them out, you can put them on the tray and put the tray in the freezer for about 10 minutes or so to keep them really in shape. I don't tend to bother with that. These aren't a complicated shape, which also helps, but if you're trying to do something a bit more delicate, then that's an option. Can be quite nice. And yeah, you get, depending on how big your cookie cutters are, depends on how many you'll get, but there's a good sort of 30-40 here, so you know, it's quite easy to get quite a lot out of the recipe, and they're just really tasty. I say this is my go-to. This is my go-to gingerbread recipe now. Having discovered it last year for Panto, when I made lots of them and was handing them around and force feeding people gingerbread stars. This is now my go-to, even though I don't strictly speaking need it to be gluten-free and dairy-free. This recipe works well enough, so I've replaced any other inferior gingerbread recipes with this one. Yeah. I'll take a picture of some decorated ones and you can see why I'm not going to make you actually watch me do the decoration, because that's not